The day I buried my husband, my daughter-in-law screamed at me to sign the will, or get out of the funeral home. I signed. But I signed my daughter's name instead of my own. That was the moment I stopped being a grieving widow, and became a woman with nothing left to lose. Frank had been dead for exactly 3 hours, when the first wave of vultures arrived at the funeral home. I remember because the clock on the wall read 2:47, and my watch had stopped at 11:15, the exact minute the doctor called me in the hospital corridor and told me my husband of 45 years had passed. I hadn't had time to wend it. I hadn't had time to do a lot of things. The funeral home smelled like cheap lilies and furniture polish. I was wearing a black dress I had bought for my mother's funeral 12 years ago. Which felt like a small cruelty from the universe. My hands were cold, and I kept rubbing my wedding ring, that thin gold band Frank had saved 6 months to buy. He was a mechanic then, working double shifts at the garage. He used to come home with grease under his fingernails, and a smile that made me forget we couldn't afford a proper honeymoon. Elena arrived first, of course. She always arrived first to everything. My daughter-in-law was a woman who understood timing the way a predator understands prey. She wore a black designer suit that cost more than my first car. Her heels clicked against the linoleum floor like small hammers. Behind her shuffled my son Matthew, looking like a man who had forgotten how to stand up straight. My grandson Thomas trailed behind them. He was 9, small for his age, with his grandfather's blue eyes. He kept his head down, staring at his sneakers. I wanted to reach for him, but Elena's body was a wall between us. Helen, Elena said. She never called me mom. Not once in 15 years. Marriage to my son. We need to talk. Privately, I was standing beside Frank's casket. He looked peaceful, which was a lie. The last 6 months had been brutal. The cancer eating him from the inside out. I had changed his bandages, held his hand through the screaming, watched him cry like a child when the pain became too much. The peaceful corpse in that expensive mahogany box was not the man I had nursed through hell. Whatever you need to say can be said here, I replied. My voice was steady. I surprised myself. Elena's smile didn't reach her eyes. This is about the will, Helen. The lawyer is waiting outside. We need to get this done quickly. The will, I repeated. Frank and I had discussed our final wishes 100 times. The house on Maple Street, the small life insurance policy, the jewelry my mother had left me. All of it was supposed to be divided between our 2 children, Matthew and Lily, with our grandchildren as secondary beneficiaries. Simple. I have the document right here. Elena pulled a folded packet from her expensive handbag. It's just a formality. Frank wanted everything to go to Matthew, for the children. It's what he told me in the hospital. I read at her. Frank told you that. He was very clear. She didn't blink. He was worried about your health, Helen. You've been so tired, taking care of him. He didn't want you to have the stress of managing the estate. He wanted us to handle everything. Matthew shifted uncomfortably behind her. I looked at my son, this man I had raised. The boy who used to bring me dandelions from the front yard. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Matthew, I said. What did your father tell you? He opened his mouth, but Elena answered for him. He told Matthew the same thing. It was a difficult conversation, but Frank was a practical man. He understood that you're not as sharp as you used to be. The words hung in the air like smoke. I felt them enter my chest cold and sharp. I was 57 years old. I had run a household for 4 decades, raised 2 children, managed every bill and every crisis. I had nursed Frank through heart surgery, through pneumonia, through the cancer that finally took him, and this woman, this stranger who had married my son, was calling me senile. I'm not signing anything, I said. Not until I've spoken to Frank's lawyer myself. Elena's face broadened. The lawyer is right here. He brought the document. She gestured toward the doorway, where a thin man in a cheap suit was hovering nervously. I recognized him. Henderson, a junior associate at a local firm, not Frank's longtime attorney, who had retired 2 years ago. Henderson, I said. I don't recall Frank ever mentioning you. He read his throat. Your husband contacted our firm about 6 months ago. He wanted to update his estate planning. We have all the necessary documentation. 6 months ago, I repeated. 6 months ago. Frank could barely speak. 6? He was on so much morphine he couldn't remember what day it was. Elena stepped closer to me. I could smell her perfume. Something sharp and expensive. This doesn't have to be difficult, Helen. Just sign the paper. You can go back to the funeral. We can all move on. I said. My husband of 45 years is in a box behind me. What exactly am I moving on to? Her smile vanished. You're making this about yourself. As always, she glanced at Matthew. Tell her what Frank wanted. Matthew's face was pale. He looked like he might be sick. Mom, maybe we should just. It's what Dad wanted, he told me. In the hospital, I looked at my son. His eyes were red-rimmed. But I didn't know if he was crying for his father or for himself. He had always been weak. I had made excuses for him his whole life. He was sensitive, I told myself. He was kind. I had protected him from every hard thing, every difficult truth. And now he stood beside a woman who was trying to steal everything his father had worked for. Show me the will, I said. Elena's face lit up with triumph. She handed the document to me. And I took it with hands that were trembling. I opened the packet, scanning the legal language quickly. I had read enough contracts in my life to understand what I was looking at. The terms were devastating. Frank's entire estate, including the house and all financial assets, was to be inherited by Matthew. There was a clause appointing Elena as the executor. There was no mention of Lily at all. My daughter, who Frank had loved fiercely, who had called him every Sunday without fail, was completely cut out. This is not Frank's signature, I said flatly. Elena's smile wavered. What do you mean? This is not his signature. I pointed to the shaky line at the bottom of the document. Frank had a tremor in his right hand. He rotted using his left hand to sign things 6 months ago. This is written with his right hand, and the loops are wrong. He used to make his W's like a bell curve. This is all jagged. Henderson stepped forward, looking suddenly nervous. Mrs. Walker, I can assure you the document was properly witnessed. By who? I demanded. The nurses who were running around trying to keep him alive. The friend he hadn't spoken to in 20 years. This document is a forgery. Elena's eyes went cold. You are being hysterical, Helen. Grief has made you paranoid. This is the will. Frank wanted Matthew to have everything. It was his final wish. His final wish, I repeated. His final wish was to leave his daughter nothing. To leave me nothing. We were married for 45 years. Elena. He loved Lily. This document is a lie, and you know it. The room was very quiet. Even Thomas looked up from his sneakers, his small face confused. Matthew spoke up. His voice cracked. Mom, please, just do it. We have to get this over with. The CR is waiting. We have a lunch reservation. A lunch reservation. On the day of his father's funeral. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to grab his shoulders and shake him, until the rades fell out of him like broken glass. But I didn't have the strength. He said again. Please, he was begging me, my son, who I had ride for 9 months. Who I had nursed through pneumonia and broken bones and heart break, was begging me to let his wife steal the life I had built with his father. I looked at Elena, her smile was back, tight and predatory. She knew she had won. She had my son, she had the lawyer. She had the upper hand in every way that mattered. And I was just an old widow in a cheap black dress, standing beside her dead husband's casket. But I wasn't beaten. That's the thing about hitting rock bottom. You start looking for handholds. You find them in the unlikeliest places. For me, the handhold came in the form of a question that flashed through my mind like lightning. What would Frank want me to do? He would want me to fight. I took the pen Henderson was holding. It was a cheap blue ballpoint, the kind you got from a hotel lobby. The ink was watery and thin. Elena warned. Don't make this rotter than it needs to be. I looked at her. I looked at my son, who wouldn't meet my eyes. I looked at Thomas, my grandson, who was watching everything with a growing understanding that the world was not a fair or kind place. And then I looked at the signature line. Helen Myray Walker. The name Frank had whispered in the hospital room 2 days before he died. The name he had written in the birthday cards he gave me every year. My hand. But I didn't write Helen Marie Walker. I wrote Lillian Rose Walker, my daughter's full name. I signed the document with a flourish, as if I were sealing a royal decree. Henderson was too busy checking his watch to notice. Elena was already organizing her handbag, her mind on her lunch reservation. Matthew was staring at the floor. I handed the will back to Henderson. There, it's done. Elena snatched it from him. Finally, some operation. She didn't even glance at the signature. We're leaving now. I don't want Thomas to be late for his tennis lesson. She took my son's arm and steered him toward the door. Matthew shot me one last apologetic look over his shoulder, and then he was gone. Thomas lingered for a second. He looked at me with his grandfather's blue eyes. Grandma, he whispered. I'm sorry? I know, sweetheart, I said. I know. And then he was gone too. The funeral home felt enormous and empty. The lilies were suffocating. Frank's casket was closed, and I was grateful. I didn't think I could be AR to see his face, serene and dead, while the battle for our life raged around him. I walked to the window and watched my family climb into their silver Mercedes. Elena was already on her phone, her manicured fingers flying across the screen. Matthew was staring out the window like a prisoner. Thomas was sitting in the back seat, his head low when the car pulled away. I felt the last strand of my old life snap. I turned around and saw Henderson still packing his briefcase. He was moving slowly, deliberately, probably waiting for Elena to come back with an envelope full of cash. Mr. Henderson, I said. He jumped. Walker, I thought you'd left. Look at the document you just handed to my daughter-in-law. He frowned. What? Look at the signature line. Henderson pulled the document from his briefcase. He studied it for a long moment. His face went pale, then red. This isn't. You signed a different name. I signed my daughter's name. I said calmly. Lillian Rose Walker. But you can't. This is fraud. You deceived me. I was grieving. Henderson. I allowed my voice to waver. My husband just died. My daughter-in-law was screaming at me. I was confused. I signed the wrong name by accident. He stared at me. You're lying. I'm a confused old widow. I spread my hands. That's what everyone thinks, right? That's what Elena told you. That I'm not as sharp as I used to be. Henderson looked like he was about to arue, but I raised my hand. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to keep this document in your file. You're going to tell Elena that the will is legal and valid, because I signed it. You're not going to mention the signature discrepancy to anyone. And you're going to help me. Help you with what? I reached into my handbag and pulled out my wallet. It was containing only a few dollars and a photograph of Frank from our wedding day. I held the photograph up. This, I said, this is what I'm fighting for. My family, my home, my daughter's inheritance. Elena tried to steal it from me. But I have a legal document that proves she was trying to deceive me. The signature is hers. She drafted the will. She made Matthew sign it as a witness. She didn't even notice I'd used the wrong name, because she was too busy gloating. Henderson was silent. You can help me stop her, I said. Or you can be an accomplice to fraud. Your choice. He swallowed. I don't. I'm just a junior associate. I don't have the power to. You have the power to be a witness. I interrupted. And that's all I need. The funeral home director appeared in the doorway. We need to discuss the burial arrangements. Are you ready? I tucked Frank's photograph back into my wallet. I'm ready. But as I followed the director into the hallway, I knew I wasn't ready for what was coming. I was a 57-year-old widow with no money, no support, and a son who had betrayed me. The only person I had left was Lily, and she was 600 miles away, living her own life. I had signed a false document. I had deceived a lawyer. I had committed an act of fraud that could land me in legal trouble for the rest of my life. But I had also planted a seed. Elena thought she had won. She thought I was broken, weak, defeated. She thought the old widow would crawl back to her empty house and wait for the funeral home to deliver Frank's ashes in a ca box. She thought I was finished. She was wrong, because I had a daughter who was a paralegal. I had a wedding ring from a man who had loved me, and I had a plan that was just beginning to unfurl. Lily's name was on that will now, and no matter how many lawyers Elena threw at me, no matter how many judges she bribed or documents she forged, I was going to make sure Lillian Rose Walker got everything she deserved. Everything Frank and I had built together. Everything that was stolen from me at my own husband's funeral. I walked out of the funeral home into the cold afternoon air. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. I thought about Frank, about the life we'd had. About the life we'd planned together before the cancer took him. I thought about how he would laugh at me if he could see me now, his gentle, practical wife, committing fraud in a funeral home. But I also thought about how proud he would be. Because I wasn't just fighting for his money. I wasn't just fighting for the house or the insurance or the tiny, dusty jewelry box that held my mother's paroles. I was fighting for his legacy, and no one, not Elena, not Matt, not the slick lawyers or the corrupt judges, was going to take that away from me. I got into my old sedan. The one Frank had bought me for our 30th anniversary. The engine coughed and sputtered before turning over. The driver's seat was worn and cracked, exactly where Frank's elbow used to rest. I sat there in the DAR parking lot, the heater blowing lukewarm air, and I started to cry. Not because I was sad, because I was angry. For the first time in 20 years, I was properly recklessly, gloriously angry. Not the simmering anger of a wife who was neglected. Not the quiet frustration of a mother who was ignored. This was the furious, burning rage of a woman who had been stripped of her dignity in front of her dead husband's casket. And that rage was going to fuel me. I wiped my eyes and pulled out my phone. My hands were still shaking. But my voice was steady when I called Lily. She answered on the second ring. Mom, is everything okay? The funeral was today, right Lily, I said. I need you to come home. There was a beat of silence. Then, what happened? They tried to steal everything, I said. Elena had a forged will. She made me sign it. But I signed your name instead of mine, and now I need you to help me. Another pause. When Lily spoke, her voice was hard. The voice of the corporate paralegal I had raised to be stronger than I ever was. I'll be there in the morning. Stay strong. Don't sign anything else, and for God's sake, don't let her push you around. I won't, I said. Not anymore, and I meant it. That night, I sat in my empty house on Maple Street, the house Frank and I had bought for $4,000 in 1978. The house where we'd raised our children, celebrated every Christmas, weathered every storm. It didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a battlefield. I walked through the rooms, touching the furniture, the photographs, the small objects that represented my life. Frank's reading glasses on the nightstand, his slippers by the fireplace, the gardening gloves he used in the backyard, still caked with dry dirt. He had died 2 days ago, and already his ghost was everywhere. I went to his closet and found the old shoebox on the top shelf, the one he kept hidden behind his winter coats. I knew what was in it. Letters from his secret life. The one I had uncovered in his final months. The second family. The son he'd never told me about. I hadn't been able to confront him about it while he was alive. The morphine had stolen his lucidity, and I couldn't bar to make his final days ugly with accusations. But I could use it now. I opened the shoebox and pulled out the letters, the photographs, the evidence of a life he had hidden from me for 30 years. A woman named Patricia, a son named Emerkar, who was Matthew's age. Alana didn't know about any of this. Matthew didn't know. Lily didn't know, but I knew. And that knowledge was my secret weapon. I placed the shoebox on the kitchen table, next to Frank's coffee mug. The photo of Patricia stared up at me, a pretty blonde woman with sad eyes. Thank you. I whispered to her photograph. I don't know who you are or what you meant to him, but I'm going to use this. I'm going to use everything. The house was silent. But I could feel Frank's presence, thick and heavy, like the weight of a winter coat. I could almost hear him laughing, that low, affectionate chuckle he always gave me when I was scheming. You always did like a good plan, he would have said, even when the plan was terrible. I smiled despite myself. This plan wasn't terrible. It was desperate. Sure, it was risky and foolish and probably illegal, but it was the only plan I had. So I sat down at the kitchen table, alone in the dark, and I started writing. Not a legal document, not a letter to Elena, not another forged signature. I started writing a list. A list of everyone who had wronged me. A list of everyone who had helped me. A list of everything I needed to do to get my life back. When I finished, I looked at the list. It was long, longer than I expected. But it was also the beginning of something. Something that was going to end with my name, Helen Rewalker, written on a legal document that actually belonged to me. I folded the list and tucked it into my bra, next to my hair art. Then I went to bed, and for the first time in 6 months, I slept without dreaming of Frank. But I woke up thinking of him, thinking of his voice, his hands, his smile, thinking of how he would have wanted me to fight. And I remembered the question I had asked myself in the funeral home, the question that had rotted everything. What would Frank want me to do? I knew the answer now. He would want me to win, and I was going to win, even if it took the rest of my life. The sun was rising over Maple Street, painting the windows in gold. My phone buzzed, a text from Lily. On the first flight. See you at noon. Don't do anything until I get there. I smiled. I had my daughter, I had my plan. And I had a forged will with my daughter's name on it. Elena thought she had won. She had no idea what was coming. But I knew, and I was ready. My daughter Lily walked through my front door at exactly 12:15. And the first thing she did was drop her suitcase and hug me so arada I thought my ribs might crack. She whispered into my hair, I'm here. I'm here. I held on to her like she was a life raft in a storm. She smelled like airport coffee and airplane air. But underneath it was the familiar scent of her shampoo, the same one she'd used since she was 16. Some things never change, and I was grateful for that. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were red. She had Frank's eyes, the same bore. The same way they crinkled at the corners when she smiled, but she wasn't smiling now. She was studying my face like she was looking for damage. Tell me everything, she said, from the beginning. Don't leave anything out. I made us tea. The same chamomile Frank always drank when he couldn't sleep. We sat at the kitchen table. The same table where I'd taught her to do her homework. The same table where Frank used to read the newspaper and complain about the state of the world. I told her about the funeral. About Alina screaming at me to sign the will. About Matthew's silence. About Thomas's small guilty face. About signing her name instead of mine. When I finished, Lily was gripping her teacup so her knuckles were white. She forged Dad's will. Lily's voice was dangerously quiet. In the hospital, while he was dying. I don't have proof yet, I said. But the signature was wrong. The witnesses were wrong. Everything about it was wrong. Lily set down her teacup and stood up. She rotted pacing the kitchen. The way she always did when she was thinking, back and forth, her heels clicking against the linoleum. She can't get away with this, Lily said. The house, the insurance, all of it. It's Dad's legacy, I repeated. The word tasted strange in my mouth. Your father had a lot of secrets, Lily. Some of them I didn't even know about. She stopped pacing. What do you mean? I didn't want to tell her. I had ride this secret for months, protecting Frank's memory even as the truth ate away at me. But I couldn't protect her anymore. She was my partner now, my ally in this fight. She deserved to know what she was walking into. I went to the closet and pulled down the shoebox. I set it on the table between us. What's this? Lily asked. Your father's secrets, I said, open as she hesitated. Then she lifted the lid and started pulling out the contents. Letters, photographs, receipts for money transfers. I watched her face change as she processed what she was seeing. Confusion, disbelief, then horror. Who is this? She held up a photograph of Patricia, the blonde woman with sad eyes. Who is this woman? Her name is Patricia, I said. I found her letters in your father's study, about 6 months ago. He was having an affair with her. For 30 years, Lily sat down heavily. 30 years? She was his first love, I said. Before me, he never got over her. They reconnected in 1985. I was pregnant with you when it rotted. Lily read at the photograph. I don't understand. How did you find out? How did you not know? I felt a familiar wave of shame wash over me. He was but the cancer made him sloppy. He rotted, forgetting where he hid things. I found the letters in a locked drawer he'd forgotten to lock. And you didn't confront him? I shook my head. He was dying, Lily. What was I going to do? Scream at a dying man about the mistakes he made 30 years ago. I was angry, I was devastated, but I also loved him, and I couldn't be to make his final days ugly. Lily was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, there's more, isn't there? In the box, I nodded. Look at the bottom. She pulled out a stack of legal documents. Birth certificates, a marriage certificate. A photograph of a young man with Frank's eyes and Frank's smile. RK, I says, son, he's 32. He has a wife and 2 children. They live in Oregon. Lily read through the documents in silence. Her face was unreadable. And I couldn't tell what she was feeling. Betrayal, grief? Dad had a whole other family, she finally said. While we were growing up, he had a whole other family. Wes. And you knew this for 6 months and you never told me. I didn't want to hurt you. Mom. She looked up at me, and there were tears in her eyes. You were going through this alone. For 6 months, you were nursing him, watching him die, and you were writing this secret by yourself. I didn't have words. I just reached across the table and took her hand. Lily, I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I was trying to protect you, protect me. She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. You've spent your whole life protecting everyone else. Me. When was the last time someone protected you? The question hit me harder than I expected. I thought about all the years I'd spent smoothing things over, keeping the peace, making sure everyone else was okay. I thought about the nights I'd sat up with Frank when he was sick, the mornings I'd made breakfast for Matthew even when he really acknowledged me, the afternoons I'd spent helping Lily with her homework, even when I was exhausted. When was the last time someone protected me? I couldn't remember. We don't have time for this, I said firmly. We need to focus on the will. Elena is going to file the document with the court tomorrow. We need to stop her. How? Lily asked. We don't have the money for a lawyer, and even if we did, the will is signed. Our only argument is that the signature is wrong. But they'll just say you were confused. Grieving, it's a weak case. Then we need to find a stronger case. What kind of case? I looked at the shoebox, at the photograph of Patricia, at the birth certificate for Mark. Elena doesn't know about this, I said. About Mark, about the second family. She thinks the will is airtight because she doesn't know about the secrets your father was keeping. Lily frowned. How does that help us? If Elena forged the will, she might have forged other documents too, I said. And if we can prove that, we can discredit her. But we need a witness, someone who can testify that Elena pressured your father. Matthew, Lily said immediately. He was there. He witnessed the will. He knows what happened. My son, my cowardly, weak, spineless son. He won't testify against Elena, I said. He's terrified of her. She's got him wrapped around her finger. Then we make him, Lily said. We give him a reason to be more afraid of us than he is of her. I stared at my daughter. This was not the little girl I had raised. This was a rotten, determined woman who had been forged in the fires of corporate law. A woman who had run to fight dirty, because the world had taught her there was no other way. What are you suggesting? I asked cheerfully. I'm suggesting we use what we have, Lily said. The secrets, the lies, the evidence of Dad's betrayal. We don't have to use it in court. We just have to threaten to use it. That's blackmail. Call it whatever you want. It's survival. I thought about it. About the ethical line I was about to cross. About the woman I used to be, the one who believed in playing fair, in turning the other cheek, in trusting that the universe would eventually right all wrongs. That woman had died at the funeral home. The moment Elena screamed at me to sign the will. The woman standing in her kitchen now was someone new. Okay, I said, but we need to be careful. If we push too hard, Elena will fight back. She has resources we don't have. Then we need to build our own resources, Lily said. We need allies. That's when I thought of George, the old gardener at the community garden. The one who was fighting his own battle against the city council. I might have someone, I said. The next morning, I took Lily to the community garden. It was a chilly fall day, the leaves still rotting to turn golden red. The garden was small and unkempt, the plant beds overgrown with weeds. But there was something beautiful about it, something defiant. George was already there, hunched over a patch of wildflowers. He was wearing his usual battered hat and a flannel shirt that was older than Lily. Helen, he said, not looking up. I heard about Frank. I'm sorry. Thank you, George. This is my daughter, Lily. George straightened up and studied Lily with his sharp, intelligent eyes. You've got your mother's spirit, and her stubbornness. Lily smiled. Everyone tells me that. Did you come to help me weed? George asked, because I could use the extra hands. What came to talk? I said, about the garden, about the city council, about what happens when they try to take something that belongs to you. George went still. You want to fight them? I want to win, I said, and I think you want to win too. George looked at the garden, at the wildflowers, the overgrown beds, the fragile ecosystem he had spent years nurturing. The city council meeting is next month, he said. They're going to vote on the rezoning. If they'll bulldoze this place and build a parking lot. Then we need to stop them, Lily said. George laughed, a dry, rusty sound. How? I've been fighting this battle for 3 years. I've got no money, no influence. You have me, I said, and you have Lily, and you have a community of people who see about this garden. We just need to organize them. George was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, what's in it for you, Helen? You've got your own battles to fight. I looked at the garden, at the stubborn plants pushing through the cracked earth. It reminded me of myself, a survivor. This garden is a symbol, I said, of persistence, of refusing to give up. I'm going to fight for it because it reminds me of what I'm fighting for. George nodded slowly. Then we'll fight together. He held out his hand, and I shook it. Lily and I spent the rest of the day at the garden. We worked alongside George, pulling weeds and clearing beds. It was the kind I hadn't done in years, but it felt good. It felt like I was doing something tangible, something that mattered. As we worked, Lily said, why didn't you ever fight back? All those, when Elena was awful to you, when Matthew ignored you, why did you just take it? I paused, my hands covered in dirt, because I believed in family, I said. I believed that if I just kept loving them, kept giving them chances, they would eventually come around. I believed that love was enough. Is it? Lily asked. I don't know, I admitted. But I know that waiting for someone to love you back is not a strategy, it's a surrender, Lily nodded. So what's the strategy now? I looked at the garden. At the stubborn plants pushing through the cracks in the concrete, at George old and defiant, refusing to give up. The strategy, I said, is to stop playing by their rules. We're going to build something on our own, something they can't take away. Lily smiled. It was the same smile Frank used to give me. The one that made me believe anything was possible. Then let's build it, she said. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Alina, about Matthew, about the will, about the secret shoebox hidden in my closet. I got up and walked to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water and read out the window at the Dark Street. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Stay away from the Girardin, it's not your fight. I read at the message. My heart pounding. Who was Alina? One of her minions? Someone else entirely? I didn't know. But I knew one thing. I had just become a target. I texted Lily. We've got a problem. She called me back within seconds. What kind of problem? Someone just threatened me. Told me to stay away from the Girardin. Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she said, it's Alina, has to be. She's trying to intimidate you. Or she's trying to number on me. I said. Maybe she knows something I don't. She doesn't know anything. Lily said fiercely. She's just a bully. And bullies always back down when you stand up to them. But I wasn't so sure. The next morning, I went to the Girardin alone. George was already there, working on a new design for the orchard. He had spread out blueprints across the picnic table, intricate drawings of trees and benches and pathways. I said, I need to ask you something. He looked up. What is it? I need to know if you've ever been threatened. About the Giron. The George went still. His eyes, usually sharp and alert, suddenly looked tired. Once or twice, he said. Anonymous letters, phone calls at weird hours. Someone poisoned my flower bed last year. Did you report it? To who? The police. They don't scary about an old man's Girardin. He shook his head. I've ran to keep my head down, to fight the battles I can win. But that's not enough, I said. Not anymore. George looked at me for a long moment. You've got something else going on, don't you? Something bigger than this Girardin. I hesitated. Then I told him everything. The Lena, the forgery, the secret family. George listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, you're trying to take down a dragon with a sharp stick. I know, I said, but it's the only stick I've got. George chuckled. You remind me of my wife. She had that same stubborn streak. Wouldn't back down from anything. What happened to her? She died. George said simply. Took my hair rot with her. I've been tending this Girardin ever since. It's the only thing that keeps me going. I reached out and put my hand on his. We'll save this Girardin, both of us. Together. George's eyes met mine. And your family. I'll save them too, I said. Or I'll die trying. The week passed in a blur of activity. Lily and I went to the courthouse to file a formal challenge to the will. We met with Ria, the young lawyer Lily had contacted. And Ria was sharp, quick-witted, and she believed in us. This is a long shot, Maria warned. We're arguing that your daughter-in-law coerced your husband into changing his will. That's a tough sell. I know, I said, but we have evidence, witnesses, and a secret she doesn't know about. Mama Ria raised an eyebrow. What kind of secret? I pulled out the shoebox. The kind that changes everything. We spent the rest of the afternoon going through the evidence, the letters, the photographs, the financial records. Maria was meticulous, taking notes and flagging documents for further investigation. This is good, she said finally. This is really good. If we can prove that your husband was pressured into changing his will, we might have a case, and if we can't, Lily asked, men we aside. And we hope for the best. The next day, I got another text. This time, it was a photograph, a picture of me, walking out of the funeral home. My face was pale, my eyes sunken. I looked broken. Last a running, the text read, stay away from the Girardin, stay away from the courthouse, or I'll make your life a living hell. I showed the text to Lily and George. We were in the garden, the evening sun casting long shadows across the plant beds. Lily said, it has to be her, or someone working for her. George added, I don't see who it is, I said. I'm not backing down. Lily looked at me with a mixture of pride and worry. Mom, what if they're serious? What if they hurt you? They won't, I said. Because I'm going to give them something they don't expect. What's that? I smiled. A press conference. Lily stared at me. A press conference. For what? For the garden? I said. We're going to tell the world what's happening here. The city council wants to bulldoze this place to build a parking lot for a tech company. We're going to show them what they're destroying. George nodded slowly. It might backfire, or it might work, I said. Either way, it's a fight. The press conference was scheduled for the following Saturday. Lily handled the logistics, contacting local newspapers and TV stations. George Preppa read a speech about the garden and its importance to the community. I practiced my own statement, as simple, heartfelt plea for the garden to be saved. But as I stood in front of the cameras, looking out at the crowd of neighbors and friends who had come to support us, I realized that I wasn't just fighting for the garden anymore. I was fighting for myself, for the years I'd spent being invisible, being a doormat for everyone else's ambitions. I was fighting for the right to be seen. Good morning, I said into the microphone. My name is Helen Walker, and I'm here to save this garden. I told the story of the garden, of George's tireless work, of the community that had been built around this small patch of earth. I didn't mention the will or Alina or the forgery. That was a battle for another day. But as I spoke, I could feel something shifting inside me. Something that had been buried for decades, waiting for the right moment to surface. Strength. When I finished my speech, the crowd erupted in applause. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions. But I didn't hear any of it. Because standing in the back of the crowd, her face a mask of fury, was Alina. Our eyes met across the garden, and in that moment, I knew the battle was just beginning. Elena didn't wait for the press conference to end. She pushed through the crowd, her heels sinking into the soft earth, her face twisted with rage. I watched her come, and I felt my heart rate spike, but my feet stayed planted. You, she hissed, stopping inches from me. You think you can do this? You think you can humiliate me in public? I didn't back away. I'm not humiliating you, Elena. I'm saving a garden. This is about the will. Her voice dropped low. You think I don't know what you're doing? You signed your daughter's name. I saw the document. I know what you did. I kept my face neutral. I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't play dumb with me. She stepped closer. Close enough that I could smell her perfume. The same sharp expensive scent from the funeral home. You committed fraud. You signed a legal document with a false name. I could have you arrested. Lily read at my side. Then do it, she said. COLI. Call the police. I'd love to see you explain to them why you forced a grieving widow to sign a forged will. Elena's eyes snapped to Lily. You're the lawyer, the one who thinks she's so clever. Paralegal, Lily corrected. But I know enough to recognize fraud when I see it. The signature on that will is wrong, Elena. We both know it. The question is, who's going to blink first? The cameras were still rolling. Reporters were jostling for position, trying to capture the confrontation. I saw George in the background, his face tight with worry. Elena glanced at the cameras, and something shifted in her expression. She smoothed her dress, forced a smile. This isn't over, she said softly. You think you've won a battle, but you haven't even seen the duar. She turned and walked away, her heels leaving small holes in the damp earth. I watched her go, my heart pounding in my chest. Lily said quietly. Are you okay? I nodded, but I wasn't. Elena's threat lingered in the air, poisonous and real. The reporters stubborned me as soon as Elena was gone. They wanted to know who she was, what she was talking about, what was really going on. I deflected, answered their questions about the garden, kept my voice steady, but inside, I was falling. George found me an hour later, sitting on a bench at the far end of the garden. The press had finally left, and the garden was quiet. The only sound the rustle of leaves in the wind. You handled that well, he said, sitting down beside me. I handled it terribly, I said. She's going to destroy me. George was quiet for a moment. Then he said, she's already trying to destroy you. The difference is, now you're fighting back. I looked at my hands. They were trembling. I'm not sure I'm strong enough for this. Helen, you've been strong your whole life. You just didn't realize it. He pulled a small folded paper from his pocket. I've been working on something. What kind of plan? A legal strategy. He unfolded the paper, revealing a detailed diagram. The city council meeting is in 2 weeks. If we can get enough signatures on this petition, we can force a public vote on the rezoning. It won't stop them permanently, but it will buy us time. Time for what? Time to build our case. Time to prove that Alina is not who she says she is. I studied the diagram. It was meticulous, every detail considered. George had been working on this for weeks, maybe months. George, this is brilliant. Why didn't you show me this before? Because I didn't know if I could trust you, he admitted, but after today, I know I can. I folded the paper and tucked it into my pocket. One need to get signatures. Fast, we'll start tomorrow, he said. I've got a list of every household in the neighborhood. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the confrontation with Alina over and over in my mind. I thought about the will, the forgery, the secrets I was keeping. I got up and went to the closet. I pulled down the shoebox and took out the photograph of Patricia, Frank's secret love. Who was she, really? What had she meant to Frank? And what would she have done if she had been in my position? The next morning, George and I rotted knocking on doors. It was exhausting work. Most people were suspicious, reluctant to sign anything. But some of them recognized me from the press conference. And they were willing to listen. I remember you, one woman said, an elderly widow named Mrs. Phelps. You're the woman from the Jardin. The one who stood up to that awful woman. She was at the press conference. I said, my daughter-in-law. Phelps's eyes widened. That woman is your daughter-in-law. I'm so sorry. She seems perfectly dreadful. She is, I admitted. And she's trying to destroy this Jardin. We need signatures to stop her. Phelps signed without hesitation. Anything to help. My husband used to tend that Jardin. You know, he passed 10 years ago. But I still remember the roses he grew. By the end of the first day, we had collected 50 signatures. By the end of the third day, we had 100. By the end of the first week, we had 300. It was progress. But it wasn't enough. We need more, George said. We need to reach the whole neighborhood. Then we need to go bigger, Lily said. She had been helping us, organizing the signatures, coordinating volunteers. We need to host an event, a community gathering, get people to come out and support the Jardin. Where would we even host something like that? I asked. George said, in the Jardin. We'll set up tables, bring food, play music. Make it a celebration. Who's going to pay for all that? Lily smiled. I might know a few people in the local media who owe me favors. The community gathering was scheduled for the following Saturday. We spent the week preparing, cleaning up the Jardin, setting up tables and chairs. George brought in his prized rose bushes, arranged them in a circle around a makeshift stage. The day of the event, I woke up with a knot in my stomach. I had been so focused on the Jardin that I had almost forgotten about the other threat looming over me, the will, the forgery, Elena's imminent legal challenge. Mum, Lily said, Appy ring in my doorway. You need to see this. She handed me her phone. It was a local news article, posted just an hour ago. Local widow accused of fraud, the headline read. Who made headlines with her campaign to save the Maple Street community Jardin, is facing allegations that she forged a legal document at her husband's funeral. I read the article, my blood running cold. Alina had gone to the press. She was painting me as a liar, a fraud, a manipulator who had exploited her grief to steal from her own family. Mum, are you okay? Lily asked. No, I said honestly, but I can't let her stop me. We're going to the gathering. We're going to win this. The gathering was bigger than I expected. Hundreds of people showed up, drawn by the music and the food and the community spirit. I stood on the stage and talked about the Jardin, about the importance of community. But I could see the questions in their eyes, the doubt, the whispers. Is she really a fraud? Did she really forge a will? Can we trust her? When the gathering was over, I was exhausted. I sat down on a bench, my head in my hands. Hey Ard, what happened? A voice said. I looked up. It was Mrs. Phelps, the elderly widow from the first day. I don't know what to do, I admitted. Alana is destroying everything I've worked for. Helen, you're not a fraud, Mrs. Phelps said firmly. I've known you for 20 years. You've never lied to anyone in your life. You're fighting for what's right. But the will. Forget the will, she said. Focus on the Gura. Focus on what you can control. The rest will work itself out. Her words were comforting, but I wasn't sure I believed them. That night, I went to the Jardin one last time. It was day arcade, the stars scattered across the sky like diamonds. I stood in the middle of the plant beds and closed my eyes. I thought about Frank, about Patricia, about the secrets I was keeping. I thought about Elena, her face twisted with rage, her threats echoing in my ears. And I thought about the woman I had become, The woman who refused to give up, no matter how impossible the odds. Frank, I whispered into the darkness. I don't know if you can hear me, but I need your help. I need you to tell me what to do. The Girardin was silent, but in my heart I heard his voice, soft and steady. Helen, you've always been a fighter. You just forgot. And I knew what I had to do. The next morning I called Maria, the young lawyer Lily had contacted. I want to take the case to court, I said. I want to challenge the will in front of a judge. Are you sure? Maria asked. That's a big risk. If you lose, Alana could come after you for fraud. I'm sure, I said. I've been running from this long enough. We filed the motion the next day. The court date was scheduled for a month later, but just a few days later, I received a letter. It was from Alina's lawyer, informing me that they were filing a countersuit, accusing me of fraud, slander, and defamation. I was being sued. I called Lily immediately. Elena's countersuing. She's trying to destroy me. Don't worry, Lily said. We'll fight her. We'll win. But I wasn't sure I believed her. The odds were stacked against me. And Elena had resources I couldn't even dream of. Still, I had to try. The night before the first court hearing, I sat alone in my kitchen, staring at the shoebox. The photograph of Patricia Stier read back at me, her eyes sad and knowing. I had kept her secret for so long, but maybe it was time to let it out. The next morning, I took the shoebox to court. The hearing was short. The judge asked questions, reviewed the evidence, listened to both sides. Alina's lawyer presented the will, a rog that I had forged it, demanded that I be held accountable, and then it was my turn. I stood up and walked to the witness stand. The judge looked at me with weary eyes. Miss, do you have anything to say? I took a deep breath. I have evidence that my daughter-in-law coerced my husband into changing his will. I have witnesses who can testify that she pressured him while he was dying, and I have evidence of a secret financial arrangement that she never disclosed. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. What evidence? The judge asked. I pulled the shoebox from my bag. This, Your Honor, the evidence of everything Alina has hidden. Elena's face went pale, and in that moment, I knew the battle was just beginning. The courtroom went silent, every eye in the room fixed on the shoebox in my hands. I could feel Elena's glow boring into the side of my head, but I didn't look at her. I kept my eyes on the judge, an older woman with silver-streaked hair and tired but sharp eyes. Your Honor, I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. Inside this box are documents that prove my daughter-in-law, Alina, has been systematically defrauding my family for years. Letters, financial records, and evidence of a secret life my husband was forced to conceal. Alina knew about this secret life. She used it to manipulate my husband into changing his will. Elena's lawyer shot to his feet. Objection, Your Honor, this is irrelevant character assassination. The will in question was signed by Mrs. Walker herself. She admitted to signing it with a different name. I interrupted, because I was coerced. Because Elena screamed at me in a funeral home, in front of my husband's casket, and threatened to have me removed if I didn't sign. The judge raised an eyebrow. I'm going to allow the evidence. But please, proceed with caution. This is a courtroom, not a television drama. I nodded and opened the shoebox. My hands were shaking, but I forced them steady. I pulled out the first document, a letter from Patricia, dated 1985. Your Honor, this is a letter from Patricia Monroe, a woman my husband had an affair with for 30 years. He had a second family, a son named Me'ar. Elena knew about this. She used it to threaten my husband in his final months. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. I heard Lily gasp behind me. She knew about Patricia, but hearing it spoken aloud, in a courtroom, made it real. Elena's face was white. Her lawyer was whispering furiously in her ear, but she wasn't listening. She was staring at me with a look of pure hatred. The judge held up a hand, silencing the room. Where did you get this evidence? From my husband's personal effects, Your Honor. He kept them hidden. I found them after he died. And you believe this evidence is relevant to the will? Yes, Your Honor. Because Elena used this information to blackmail my husband. She threatened to expose his secret life to his children, to his friends, to everyone he loved. She told him that if he didn't change his will in her favor, she would destroy his legacy. Elena's lawyer stood up again. Your Honor, this is pure speculation. There is no evidence that my client blackmailed anyone. I pulled out another document. This is a bank statement, Your Honor. It shows that Elena transferred $50,000 from my husband's account into her personal account 2 weeks before he died. She didn't have authorization to do that. She forged his signature. The courtroom was dead silent. Even the judge leaned forward, studying the document with narrowed eyes. May I see that? The judge asked. I walked the document up to the bench. The judge examined it carefully, her expression unreadable. Walker, the judge said slowly, this is a serious accusation. Do you have proof that the signature was forged? I have witnesses, I said. The bank teller who processed the transaction. She can testify that Alina came in alone, without my husband, and that she seemed agitated. The teller remembered because it was an unusual request. Alina's lawyer was on his feet again. Your Honor, this is Hirase. The teller is not present in this courtroom. Then we'll call her, I said. I have her contact information. She's willing to testify. The judge set down the document. Ms. Wa, I'm going to schedule a continuation hearing. We'll reconvene in 2 weeks. I want to see all of this evidence, properly organized and presented. Until then, I'm ordering a temporary freeze on all assets related to the estate. Elena stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. Your Honor, this is outrageous. She's trying to steal my family's inheritance. Your family's inheritance. I turned to face her. This is my inheritance, my husband's legacy. The house I helped build with my own hands. And you tried to steal it from me. The courtroom was chaos. Reporters were scribbling notes. Photographers were snapping pictures. Elena was arguing with her lawyer, her face red with fury. I walked back to my seat, my legs trembling. Lily grabbed my hand. Mom, she whispered. That was amazing. You did it. Not yet, I said. The fight isn't over. But for the first time in months, I felt like I was winning. The next 2 weeks were a blur. Lily and I worked tirelessly, gathering evidence, organizing documents, preparing for the continuation hearing. George helped us, bringing his own contacts and resources. We're building a coalition, he said. Neighbors, friends, anyone who knows Elena's true character. We're going to show the world who she really is. I was grateful for George's support. But I knew the real battle was still to come. Elena wasn't going to give up easily. She had too much to lose. A week before the hearing, I got a call from Maria. Walker, she said, her voice tense. I just received a subpoena. Elena's lawyer is calling me to testify. They're trying to discredit you. What do you mean? They're claiming that you're mentally incompetent, that you've been suffering from dementia for years, and that your husband was trying to protect you by changing the will. They're going to argue that you couldn't have signed the will because you're not of sound mind. My heart dropped. That's ridiculous. I know, Maria said, but we need to prove it. We need to get a medical evaluation, and we need witnesses who can testify to your competence. Who can do that? Your daughter, for one, your neighbors, anyone who has seen you functioning normally. I thought about George, about Mrs. Phelps, about all the people who had signed the petition. They knew me. They could vouch for me. I'll find witnesses, I said. Don't worry. The night before the hearing, I went to the garden. It was dark, the plants swaying gently in the breeze. George was there, working by lantern light. Can't sleep, he asked. Too nervous, I admitted. Elena is going to try to destroy me tomorrow. She's already tried that, George said. You're still standing. I smiled, despite myself. You always know what to say. Comes with age, he said. And disappointment. I sat down on the bench next to him. George, I have to ask you something. If the court rules against me, what happens to the Girodin? It goes to the city, he said. They'll bulldoze it and build their parking lot. And what happens to you? He shrugged. I'll find something else to do. Maybe I'll start a new garden somewhere else. Or maybe I'll just give up and let the world win. I don't want that, I said. I don't want you to give up. George looked at me. Helen, you can't save everyone. You're trying to save your family, your home, and this Girodin. It's too much, maybe, I said. But I've never been good at knowing when to quit. He laughed. A dry, rusty sound. Neither have I. That's probably why we get along so well. The hearing was the next morning. I dressed cheerfully, choosing a simple navy blue dress that I knew made me look capable and composed. Lily drove me to the courthouse, her hand on mine the whole way. Mom, no matter what happens today, I'm proud of you, she said. You've fought harder than anyone I know. Thank you, I said. But I'm not done fighting yet. The courtroom was full, reporters, spectators, Elena and her entourage. Matthew was there too, sitting in the back row, his face pale and drawn. He wouldn't meet my eyes. The judge entered, and we all rose. I felt my heart pound as I sat back down, waiting for the proceedings to begin. Elena's lawyer started with a motion to dismiss my evidence, claiming it was irrelevant and prejudicial. The judge denied it. Then Alina's lawyer called his first witness. A doctor who had treated Frank in his final months. Dr. Hamilton, the lawyer said, can you describe Walker's mental state in the weeks before his death? He was confused. The doctor said, his memory was failing. He had trouble recognizing his own family members at times. And did he ever express any concerns about his wife's mental state? He did, he told me. Walker was suffering from memory loss and confusion. He was worried about her ability to manage the estate. I felt my stomach drop. Frank had told the doctor I was losing my mind. It had to be Elena's influence. She had been manipulating him. Objection. Maria said. This is hierarchy, Mr. Walker is not here to confirm or deny these claims. Sustained. The judge said. But I will allow the testimony to stand for now. The doctor stepped down, and Elena's lawyer called Matthew to the stand. I watched my son walk to the witness box, his shoulders hunched, his eyes avoiding mine. He looked like a man going to his own execution. Mr. Walker, the lawyer said, can you confirm that your father was concerned about your mother's mental state? Matthew paused. He looked at me, then at Elena, then back at the lawyer. He was concerned, Matthew said slowly. But I don't think. Just answer the question. The lawyer interrupted. Les? Matthew said, his voice really audible. He was concerned, the lawyer repeated. In fact, he was so concerned that he wanted to change his will to protect his wife from herself. Matthew's face was white. I don't know about that. I didn't know anything about the will until after he died. But you witnessed the will. The lawyer said. You signed it as a witness. Yes, I did, but I didn't read it. I didn't understand what I was signing. The courtroom was silent. Everyone was waiting for Matthew's next words. And then something remarkable happened. Matthew looked up. He looked at me, his mother, the woman he had betrayed. I was a coward, he said, his voice breaking. My wife pressured me. She told me if I didn't sign, she would leave me and take Thomas. She said she would destroy me, so I signed, but I knew it was wrong. I knew Dad wouldn't have wanted that. Elena shot to her feet. What were you doing? Shut up, the judge slammed her gavel. Order. I will have order in this courtroom. Matthew kept talking, his voice gaining strength. Mom, I'm so sorry, I was weak, I was afraid, but I can't keep lying. I can't keep pretending I didn't know what Elena was doing. I read at my son. For the first time in years, I saw the boy I used to know, the boy who had always been afraid, but who could still find his way back to the light. What are you saying, mister? Mama Maria asked, seizing the moment. I'm saying, Matthew said, his voice steady now, that my wife forged my father's will. She pressured him. She threatened him. And she made me sign a document I knew was wrong. The courtroom erupted. Elena was screaming. Her lawyer was shouting. The judge was pounding her gavel, demanding order. But I didn't hear any of it. I was watching my son, who had finally found his voice, my son, who had chosen to do the right thing, even when it cost him everything, and I knew, in that moment, that I could forgive him. It wasn't going to be easy, it wasn't going to be quick, but I could forgive him. Because he had finally given me the one thing I needed most, the truth. Elena was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs. The judge had ordered her arrested for fraud and forgery, pending a full investigation. Matthew was in shock, sitting in the hallway, his head in his hands. I sat down next to him. Matthew, I said. He looked up, his eyes red and swollen. Mom. I'm so sorry, I said. But you made it right. That's what matters. I betrayed you, he said. How can you ever forgive me? I put my hand on his shoulder. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting, Matthew. It's about moving forward. It's about choosing to let go of the anger, even when it's hard. He looked at me with Frank's eyes. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Maybe not, I said, but I'm giving it to you anyway. He started to cry, and I held him. Just like I had held him when he was a child, when the world was too big and too scary. You're going to be okay, I told him. We're all going to be okay. And in that moment, I believed it. The courthouse steps were a circus. Reporters scurried around me like locusts, their microphones jabbing toward my face like weapons. I kept my head down, my hand gripping Lily's arm so assured my knuckles were white. Matthew walked behind us, still in a daze, his face pale and drawn. Mrs. Walker, what do you think will happen to Elena? Ms. Walker, is it true your son confessed to fraud? Ms. Walker, do you plan to press charges? I didn't answer any of them, I just kept walking. My eyes fixed on the parking lot where George was waiting in his old pickup truck. He had insisted on driving us to the courthouse, and I was grateful for the familiar face in the chaos. The moment we reached the truck, George threw open the door. "Get in." Now, we piled into the cab, Lily in the middle, Matthew on the other side. George floored it, peeling out of the parking lot with a screech of tires. The reporters chased us for a block, then gave up. I breathed, leaning back against the seat. "Don't thank me yet," George said grimly. "Elena's lawyer is already filing an appeal. And I just got a call from the city council. They're moving up the rezoning vote. It's scheduled for tomorrow. I had thought we had weeks. I had thought we had time. "How many signatures do we have?" I asked. 300, George said. "We needed 500 for the public vote. We're not gonna make it." "Then we need a different strategy," Lily said. "We need to go public, get more media attention." "We already did that," I said. "The press conference, the GA it didn't work. Then we need to do something bigger, something that forces them to listen." We drove in silence, the weight of the situation settling over us like a heavy blanket. I looked at Matthew, who was staring out the window, his face blank. "Matthew," I said soft, "are you okay?" He didn't answer. He just kept staring at the passing buildings, his eyes hollow. "Matthew, talk to me." He turned to look at me, and I saw the tears streaming down his face. "I'm not okay. I haven't been okay for a long time." Lily reached over and put her hand on his knee. "What happened to you, Matthew? You used to be different. You used to sorry." He laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "I used to see a ray about a lot of things, and then I married Elena, and she made me feel like everything I ever read about was worthless. She made me feel like I was worthless." I knew exactly what he meant. I had felt that same way for years. Voiceless. Like my only purpose was to serve the needs of others. "You're not worthless," I said firmly. "You made a mistake, a big one. But that doesn't define who you are, Ray." "Then what defines me?" he asked. "Because I don't know anymore." I thought about it. About all the years I had spent defining myself by my roles, mother, retaker. About the moment in the funeral home, when I realized that none of those roles mattered. If I didn't have a self to call my own. "You define yourself," I said. "Every choice you make, every word you speak, that's who you are. Not what other people tell you." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I want to make it right. I want to help you save the Garden. If there's anything I can do, just tell me." I looked at Lily. She shrugged, her expression unreadable. "The city council meeting is tomorrow," I said. "We need to be ready." "But Matthew, you don't have to do this. You've been through enough." "I want to," he said. "I need to." We held an emergency meeting at the Garden. George, Lily, Matthew, and me. A few neighbors had shown up too, including Phelps and a handful of other volunteers. "We're not going to make the signature deadline," George began. "That doesn't mean we've lost. We can still speak at the council meeting. We can still make our case. And if they vote against us, Phelps, then we keep fighting." I said. "Appeal. We take it to the press. We do whatever it takes." It was a reckless promise. I had no resources, no plan, no guarantee of set. But I couldn't bring myself to give up. Not now. Not after everything we'd been through. Matthew stood up. "I have an idea." Everyone turned to look at him. He was pale and shaking, but there was a spark in his eyes that I hadn't seen in years. "Elena has a lot of money," he said. "She used Dad's inheritance to invest in properties. I know where the accounts are. I know how to access them." "You want to use stolen money?" Lily asked, her voice sharp. "No," Matthew said quickly. "I want to expose her. I want to show the council what she was doing. If they know she's been laundering money, they might reconsider the rezoning vote." I stared at my son. He wasn't just showing up. He was showing up with a weapon. "How do you know all this?" I asked. "Because she trusted me," he said bitterly. "She thought I was too weak to do anything about it." She was wrong. The next morning, we went to the bank. Matthew had the account numbers, the passwords, everything we needed. The teller was initially reluctant, but Lily's legal credentials smoothed things over. An hour later, we had a stack of documents that would make anyone's head spin. Account statements, investment records, evidence of money laundering and fraud. Elena had been skimming from Frank's estate for years. "This is incredible," Lily said. "We can take this to the council. We can prove she's a criminal." "Not yet," I said. "Why need more? We need witnesses. We need people who can testify about Elena's behavior." "I know someone," Matthew said. Lena's former assistant. She quit 6 months ago. She knows everything. We tracked down the assistant, a young woman named Claire. She was nervous at first, afraid of retaliation from Alina. But when she saw the documents, her resolve eroded. I'll testify, she said. I'll tell them everything, but only if you promise to protect me. You have my word, I said. The city council meeting was packed. The room was overflowing with reporters, activists and curious onlookers. George and I sat in the front row, our documents ready. Matthew and Lily sat behind us, their faces. The council members filed in, looking bored and distracted. The chairwoman called the meeting to order, and the debate began. Before we vote on the rezoning, the chairwoman said, "We have a statement from the public." I stood up. My name is Helen Walker. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Maple Street Community Garden. I spoke for 10 minutes. I talked about the Garden's history, its importance to the community, the memories it held. I talked about George and his decades of work. I talked about the children who played there, the families who grew their own food, the beauty that would be lost if the city voted to destroy it. Then I held up the documents. This is the truth about the rezoning, I said. It's not about progress, it's about greed. It's about a woman named Alina Walker, who tried to steal my inheritance and is now trying to destroy this garden. The room erupted in whispers. The council members leaned forward, their interest piqued. I handed the documents to the chairwoman. This is evidence of fraud and money laundering. Elena used her husband's inheritance to buy properties and manipulate the city council. She was planning to build a parking lot for a tech company she has ties to. It was never about the community, it was about profit. The chairwoman looked through the documents, her face growing darker with each page. I'm going to table this vote, she said. We're going to investigate these allegations. The room erupted in applause. George grabbed my hand, his eyes wet with tea. Thank you, Matthew whispered. Thank you for giving me a chance to make it right. I hugged him tight. You did this, not me. That night, I sat in the garden, the stars twinkling overhead. George was beside me, his hand in mine. We did it, he said. We actually did it. Not yet, I said. The vote is still in question. But we've bought ourselves time. Time is what we needed, he said. Time to build something new, something better. I looked at the garden, at the plants swaying gently in the breeze. It was a beautiful, defiant thing, growing in the cracks of a broken city. George, thank you, I said, for everything. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. Helen, you've got more strength in your little finger than most people have in their whole body. He said, I just helped you find it. He squeezed my hand, and I felt a dewy earth spread through my chest. It was a small gesture, but in that moment, it meant everything. The next morning, I got a call from Maria. Mrs. Walker, I have good news. The court has dismissed Elena's appeal. She's going to be charged with fraud, and the judge has ordered that your husband's estate be returned to you. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you, Maria. Thank you for everything. The rest of the legal stuff will take some time, she said. But I wanted you to know. You won. I hung up and looked out the window. The sun was rising over Maple Street, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Matthew was sitting at the kitchen table, his head in his hands. I heard everything, he said. Alina, she wants me to visit her in jail. Are you going to go? I don't know, he admitted. I'm still angry, but she's Thomas's mother. He needs her, even if I don't. I sat down across from him. Matthew, you're not responsible for Alina's choices. You're only responsible for your own. I know, he said. But I can't help feeling like I failed. Like I could have done more. You did exactly what you needed to do, I said. You stood up, you told the truth. That's more than most people ever do. He looked up at me, his eyes red and swollen. I wish I had done it sooner. Me too, I said. But we can't change the past. We can only shape the future. He nodded slowly. I want to be better, Mom. I don't want to be weak anymore. Then be strong, I said. But don't be afraid to ask for help. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. He smiled, a small, fragile thing. I'm going to see Thomas. I'm going to tell him everything. He deserves to know the truth. I reached across the table and took his hand. I'm proud of you, Matthew. You're going to be a good father. You're already a good son. He squeezed my hand. Thank you, Mom, for everything. The Garden was saved, at least for now. The city council had launched an investigation into Elena's dealings, and the rezoning vote was indefinitely postponed. George was planning to expand the Garden, adding more plant beds and a children's play area. Lily was staying in town for a while, helping me organize the legal documents and rebuild the estate, and I was rebuilding myself. I wasn't the same woman who had walked into that funeral home. I was stronger, more confident, more alive. I had faced my worst VARs and come out the other side. I still thought about Frank sometimes, about the good ERs and the bad ERs, about the secrets he had kept and the love he had given. I still wore his wedding ring on a chain around my neck, a reminder of who I had been and who I had become. But I didn't need his approval anymore. I didn't need anyone's approval. I had found my own voice, my own purpose, my own strength. The world was still full of challenges. There would always be people like Elena, trying to tear things down for their own gain. But I wasn't afraid of them anymore. I had faced the worst of what they could do, and I had survived. I had won. And I knew, in my heart, that the best was yet to come. The weeks after the trial were strange, quiet in a way I wasn't used to. For so long, every day had been a battle, a war of attrition against Alina and everyone who had wronged me. Now suddenly the war was over, and I didn't know what to do with myself. I spent my mornings in the garden. George and I worked side by side, planting new beds, repairing the fence, planning the expansion. The garden had become my sanctuary. A place where I could think without the noise of the world pressing in on me. "You're quiet today?" George observed, wiping sweat from his brow. "Just thinking," I said. "About what?" "About everything. About what comes next." George leaned on his shovel. "What do you want to come next?" I thought about it. For the first time in my life I had choices. Not just the choices between bad and worse. "I want to help people," I said. "I want to use what I've learned to make a difference." George nodded slowly. "Then do it. You've got the platform now. People listen to you." "I don't want to be famous," I said. "I just want to be useful." "Is there a difference?" I smiled. "Sometimes I think you're the wisest person I know." "That's because I'm the oldest," he said. "Age brings wisdom. Or at least, it brings perspective." I laughed. It felt good to laugh after everything. Lily came to visit me later that week. She had been staying in town for almost a month. But she was starting to talk about going back to New York. Her job was waiting for her. Her life was waiting for her. "Mom, I have to go back soon," she said, her voice hesitant. "I can't keep taking time off." "I know," I said. "I've been expecting this. But I want to make sure you're okay, really okay." I looked at my daughter, this strong, fierce woman who had dropped everything to come to my aid. She had given up weeks of her life to fight my battle. She had stood by me through the darkest moments. I owed her more than I could ever repay. "I'm okay, Lily," I said. "Better than okay. I'm learning to be strong on my own." "You've always been strong, Mom. You just forgot." I reached out and took her hand. "I remember now." Lily squeezed my hand. "I'll come back to visit, I promise." "You better," I said. "Or I'll come to New York and drag you home." She laughed. "I'd like to see you try." Matthew was rebuilding his life too. He had moved out of the house he shared with Elena, renting a small apartment near the Gara. He was seeing Thomas regularly, trying to rebuild the relationship with his son. "Mom, I need to talk to you," he said one evening. Appia rang at my door. "Come in," I said. I was just making tea. We sat in the kitchen. The same kitchen where I had sat alone on the night of Frank's funeral. It felt like a different lifetime. "I've been thinking a lot," Matthew said. "About everything that happened, about the way I treated you." "Matthew, you don't have to keep apologizing. Let me finish." He interrupted. "I need to say this." I nodded and waited. "I was a coward," he said. "I let Alina control me. I let her make me feel like I was nothing. And I let her treat you like you were nothing too. That's in the past," I said gently. "You've changed." "I have," he agreed. "But I'm still not sure who I am. I spent so long being what Alina wanted me to be. I forgot what I wanted." I thought about my own journey, the long years of being invisible, of letting Frank and everyone else define my purpose. It had taken losing everything to find myself. "You'll figure it out," I said. "It takes time." "I know," he said, "but I need to start somewhere. I want to help with the garden. I want to do something meaningful." "Then help," I said. "There's plenty to do." Matthew started coming to the garden every day. He worked alongside George and me, planting and weeding and building. He was clumsy at first, but he was determined. I watched him grow stronger, more confident, more. "You've got a good son," George said one afternoon. "I know. I'm proud of him." Takes a strong woman to raise a man like that. It takes a strong man to find his way back. I said. George nodded. We're all just figuring it out as we go. The city council finally voted on the rezoning. After weeks of investigation, they had decided to reject the proposal. The Garden was safe permanently. We threw a celebration. The whole neighborhood came, bringing food and music and laughter. George stood on the makeshift stage and gave a speech, his eyes shining with tears. This Garden is more than just plants, he said. It's a symbol. A symbol of what we can achieve when we work together. I watched the crowd, the families and children and elderly neighbors who had come together to save something precious. I thought about Frank, about the life we had built and the life I was building now. I thought about Alina, about the cruelty that had driven her, and the fate that had caught up with her. And I thought about myself, the woman who had walked into that funeral home broken and defeated. The woman who had signed her daughter's name instead of her own. That woman was a stranger to me now. I had become someone new. George found me after his speech. You look like you're 1,000 miles away. Just thinking? I said. Don't overdo it, he said. You've got a whole lifetime ahead of you. I know, I said. And I'm not going to waste a minute of it. Lily left for New York the next week. I hugged her at the airport, holding on longer than I needed to. Come visit soon, I said. She promised. And Mom, I'm so proud of you. You're not the same woman I met at the funeral. I'm not. I agreed. I'm better, she smiled. That's my mom. I watched her walk through security, her luggage rolling behind her. She looked back once, waved, and then she was gone. I drove home alone, the radio playing softly. I thought about the future, about all the possibilities that lay ahead. I thought about the Garden, about George, about the community we were building, and I thought about Matthew, my son, who had found his way back. When I got home, Matthew was waiting on my porch. Mom, I need to tell you something, he said. What is it? I got a letter from Alina. She wants to see me. She says she wants to apologize. Are you going to go? I shook my head. I don't know, I'm still angry, but she's Thomas's mother. I think he needs closure. Then go, I said. Fool, she's manipulative, I know, he said. But I'm not the same man I was. She can't control me anymore. I pulled him into a hug. I'm proud of you? Thanks, Mom. I couldn't have done this without you. Yes, you could, I said. You just needed to believe in yourself. He pulled back and smiled. You always know what to say. Comes with age, I said, or so I'm told. The summer turned into fall, and the Garden was transformed. The new plant beds were thriving. The children's play area was finished, and the orchard was beginning to be AR fruit. George and I spent hours watching the sunset together, our hands touching in the quiet. One evening, he turned to me. Helen, I have something to ask you. What is it? I know we're both old, he said. And I know we've both been through a lot, but I've come to see about you, more than I expected, more than I thought I was capable of. I felt my heart skip. George, I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. I just wanted you to know that you matter to me. I reached out and took his hand. You matter to me too, George. Modi smiled, a arm, genuine smile that lit up his face. Then we'll take it slow. See what happens. Slow sounds good, I said. We silent, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, a beautiful, fleeting moment that seemed to last forever. For the first time in years, I felt truly content, not happy exactly, because happiness is a fleeting thing. At peace with myself and my life. I had lost so much, my husband, my home, my sense of self, but I had found so much more, a community, a purpose, a new love, fragile and tentative, but real, and I knew, deep in my heart, that the best was yet to come. The day of Alina's sentencing arrived on a cold November morning. I woke before dawn, the weight of the day pressing down on me like a physical force. I dressed seriously, choosing a simple gray dress and Frank's wedding ring on its chain, around my neck. I didn't know why I felt compelled to go. Alina had tried to destroy me, had stolen from my family, had humiliated me in front of the world. But something in me needed to see this through to the end. Matthew was waiting for me at the courthouse steps. He looked pale but composed, his shoulders straight, his eyes clear. He said, taking my hand, Are you sure you want to do this? I'm sure, I said. I need to see it. I need to know it's really over. George was there too, standing a few feet away. He had driven me to the courthouse, his old pickup truck rattling along the streets like a loyal old dog. He didn't say much, just squeezed my shoulder as we walked inside. The courtroom was smaller than I remembered. Maybe it was just that the drama had faded, the urgency replaced by a quiet sense of finality. The gallery was half empty, just a few reporters and curious onlookers. Alina sat at the defendant's table, her face pale and drawn. Her lawyer was beside her, a different one from before. A tired-looking man who seemed to have given up before the trial even began. Alina looked up when I entered. Our eyes met, and for a moment, I saw something flicker in her gaze, hatred, still, but underneath it something else, regret, loss. I took my seat in the front row. Matthew sat beside me, his hand finding mine. George was on my other side, his presence steady and reassuring. The judge entered, and we all rose. Elena's lawyer made a final plea for leniency, arguing that she had been under stress, that her actions were out of character, but the prosecutor was relentless, laying out the evidence of fraud, forgery, and financial abuse with clinical precision. Elena's voice cracked when she spoke. "I'm sorry," she said, her eyes fixed on the floor. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I just wanted to protect my family." I felt a surge of anger at her words. Protect her family. She had used those words like a shield, like a justification for everything she had done. But her family was Thomas, her son, the boy she had dragged through this nightmare. She had never protected him. She had only protected herself. The judge was unmoved. "Elena Walker, you are guilty of fraud, forgery, and financial abuse of a vulnerable elderly person. I sentence you to 5 years in state prison. Additionally, you are ordered to pay restitution to the Walker estate in the amount of $200,000. Elena crumbled. Her lawyer helped her to her feet, and she was led away in handcuffs. She didn't look back. She didn't look at Matthew, at me, at anyone. She just walked, her shoulders hunched, her spirit broken. I should have felt vindicated. I should have felt relief, but all I felt was a hollow sadness. Not for who had brought this on herself, but for the waste of it all. The years of bitterness, the cruelty, the destruction. Matthew was crying silently beside me. I put my arm around him and pulled him close. I said, "It's finally over," he nodded, wiping his eyes. I don't know how to feel." "Feel whatever you need to feel," I said. "There's no right way to do this." George drove us home in silence. The city streets blurred past, familiar landmarks I had seen 1,000 times. Everything looked the same, but everything felt different. The weight had lifted. The battle was over. That evening I went to the Girardin. It was dark, the sky painted in shades of purple and gold. George was there, sitting on the bench we had built together, staring out at the orchard. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said as I sat down beside him. "Beautiful," I agreed. "I still can't believe it's really ours." "Ours," he repeated, a small smile playing at his lips. "I like the sound of that." I leaned my head on his shoulder. "George, thank you for everything. I don't think I could have done this without you." "You could have," he said. "You just needed someone to remind you how strong you are." I smiled. "You always say the right thing." "Someone has to," he said. "You're terrible at it." I laughed. It felt good to laugh, to feel the lightness returning to my heart. The Girardin was alive with the sounds of evening, birds calling to each other, leaves rustling in the breeze. The orchard was beginning to bear fruit, small green apples hanging from the branches. George had planted them with his own hands, a labor of love that was finally paying off. "I've been thinking," I said, "about the future, about what I want to do with my life." "What do you want to do?" "I want to keep working here," I said. "I want to expand the Girardin, make it bigger, better. I want to teach people about growing their own food, about community, about resilience." George nodded. "That's a good plan. I'll help you." "I know you will," I said. "That's why I love you." The words slipped out before I could stop them. I felt my face flush, but I didn't look away. George was staring at me, his eyes wide. "Helen," he said softly. "You mean that?" "I mean it," I said. "I didn't expect it. I didn't plan it. But somewhere along the way, you became the most important person in my life." He reached out and took my hand. "You became the most important person in mine too." I was just too scared to say it. "Scared of what?" "Scared of getting hurt," he admitted. "I've lost people before. I didn't think I could bear to lose anyone else." I squeezed his hand. "I'm not going anywhere, George. Not anymore." He smiled, and in that moment, he looked younger, lighter. "Good," he said, "because I'm not going anywhere either." We sat in silence, watching the stars begin to emerge. The Girardin felt magical, a pocket of peace in a chaotic world. Matthew and Thomas came to visit the next day. Thomas had grown taller over the past few months, his face losing some of its childish roundness. He had been through so much. but there was a resilience in him that reminded me of myself. Grandma, he said, running up to hug me. I missed you. I missed you too, sweetie, I said, holding him close. How are you doing? Okay, he said. Dad says we're going to be okay. I looked at Matthew, who was watching us with tears in his eyes. I said, we'll be okay. Thomas pulled back and looked at the garden. It's beautiful here, he said. Can I help you plant something? Of course, I said. I'll teach you everything I know. He grinned, a wide, genuine smile that lit up his face. Thanks, Grandma. I watched him run off to explore the orchard, his laughter echoing across the garden. Matthew came and stood beside me. He's a good kid, I said. Thanks to you, Matthew said. You've been a rock for him. For me, you've been a rock for yourself, I said. I just helped you remember how to stand. He smiled, a sad but hopeful smile. I want to ask you something. What is it? I want to come back. I want to help with the garden full time. I want to be part of this community. I felt tears prick my eyes. Matthew, are you sure? He said. I need to rebuild my life, and I want to do it here, with you. I pulled him into a hug. You're always welcome here. Always, joined us, putting a hand on Matthew's shoulder. What could use the help? The orchard isn't going to plant itself. Matthew laughed. I'm not much of a gardener. You'll lay on, George said. Everyone starts somewhere. We spent the afternoon planting. Thomas was eager to help, his small hands covered in dirt. Matthew was clumsy but determined. George directed us with the patience of a man who had done this 1,000 times. And I watched it all, my heart full to bursting. I thought about Frank, about the life we had shared, the secrets we had kept, the love that had sustained us through the years. I thought about the funeral, the will, the long months of fighting. I thought about Elena, about the choices she had made and the consequences she was facing. I thought about myself, the woman I had been, the woman I was becoming. I had lost so much, but I had found so much more. I had found my voice, my strength, my purpose. I had found love again, in the most unexpected place. And I had found my family, the family I had always wanted, the family I had fought so hard to protect. We were all broken, in our own ways, but we were all healing together. George came up behind me and put his arms around my waist. What are you thinking about? Everything, I said. Nothing, that's a lot of thinking, he said. You're impossible. You love it? He said. I said, I really do. The garden was quiet, the evening settling in like a familiar blanket. Thomas was running through the orchard, his laughter echoing across the grounds. Matthew was sitting on the bench, watching his son with a soft smile. I felt a deep, profound peace settle over me. The kind of peace that comes after a long, brutal, the kind of peace that can only be around. I leaned into George's embrace and closed my eyes. This was my life now, this was my future, and it was beautiful. And so are you if you've made it this far. This story isn't just about me anymore. It's about everyone who has ever been told they're not enough. Everyone who has been silenced, broken, or cast aside. We are not victims. We are warriors, we are survivors, and together, we can grow something beautiful out of the ashes. If this story touched your heart, please hit the like button, leave a comment sharing your own story of resilience, and subscribe to this channel for more tales of strength, survival, and the quiet power of women who refuse to give up. We are all gardeners in this world, planting seeds of hope in the soil of our lives. Let's keep growing together.